Polar Bears on Thin Ice by Shelby Heigl, Matthew Kuski, Logan Bull, Madison Verhage, Jenna Loyal, Elliot Ashley, Jordan Walters, Robert Gallen, and Ian Cleaver. Levels of ecology. Our polar bears relate to the levels such as organism, population, communities, and ecosystem. For organism, it must contain all 6 characteristics. Responsiveness to environment. Polar bears are able to adapt to changes such as ice melting, so they have to move to new areas. Growth and development. Polar bears can start off at about 30 centimeters and weigh about 454 to 680 grams. And over the course of 5 years, they can grow to be 7.25 to 8 feet and can weigh 775 to 1,200 pounds. Reproduction. A male and female polar bear can mate and have anywhere from 1 to 4 baby cubs. They contain 1 or more cells. Polar bears are multicellular and contain cells such as nerve cells, blood cells, muscle cells, and skin cells. They obtain and use energy. They rely on the consumption of seals for their energy, and by doing that, they break down the food and are able to use it to proceed like processes such as hunting. And they must maintain homeostasis. They are able to do this by regulating their body temperature to stay at about 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and they are able to stay at that temperature due to their 4.5 layers of body fat.
Levels of ecology continued. Population. There are only 25,000 polar bears left worldwide. They tend to travel and live solo, but they do have ways of communicating when coming in contact with another. When feeling threatened, they will make many sounds such as hissing, growling, and chomping their teeth. Then in some cases, when a polar bear wants food from another, it will circle the area, then they will meet nose to nose with each other to determine what will happen next. Ecosystem. Polar bears are at the top of the food chain in their ecosystem. They are really important because they keep the balance of seals and other prey from overpopulation. A typical food chain would be algae, diatoms, copepods, arctic cod, ringed seals, and polar bears. Communities. Competition. In the polar bears community and environment, they have a competition and its climate change. Predation. Polar bears feed on seals and fish. Parasitism. Polar bears can contract a parasite called trichinella, which they get from infected seals. Trichinella larvae encyst in various parts of a bear's body, usually muscle tissue. If enough larvae ends up in one area, it can cause to become really damaged and lead to death. Commensalism. Polar bears have a relationship with Arctic foxes where the bear will leave scraps behind and the fox will feed on what is left.
Why are polar bears important? Polar bears directly impact the rest of sea life in the Arctic. Polar bears are an apex predator at the top of the food chain. Because polar bears are at the top of the food chain, they can signal problems in the Arctic marine ecosystem. This shows how vital they are to the Arctic.
Why is it necessary to protect the polar bears? So, as seen to the right of this slide, the polar bear population has been decreasing more than it is increasing in the past years. Some of the causes for this are climate change, habitat loss, low food sources, and melting ice. Polar bears are needed to keep a balance in the Arctic ecosystem, so because of these reasons, we need to help the polar bears.
As seen here, 40% of the polar bear population has decreased in the last 10 years. As of now, there are only 25,000 polar bears left in the wild.
What do we plan to achieve? Our goal is to protect and conserve the polar bears and their habitat. To reach our goal, we'd like to educate large companies, like oil companies, about the bears and their endangerment. We'd also like to ban hunting until the polar bear population is stable, buy land in the Arctic, and put a law that stops people from drilling for oil.
Alright, this is what we plan to achieve. Like, give more description. Help the water near the bear's habitat become more clean, like using solar power boats or electric boats to make sure that there's not like any oil coming from them or any other like natural disasters, like a big oil spill. Another way we could help is by banning hunting so that the population can rise to a healthy amount, and then maybe after we create like a permit or some more, maybe you could hunt one per year. And then another way we can hunt the polar bears is buying glaciers in the Arctic to where the land is preserved so there's no human activity.
A thing we can do to help us achieve our goals is by putting a law in against drilling for oil, and it'll help save the polar bears. Drilling is causing oil spills, therefore polluting the ocean. The pollution in the water is killing the fish, destroying the ecosystem. By educating large oil companies like Shell, it could cause the companies to stop delivering oil to the Arctic.
How are we using the money? We will use the money in 3 specific areas: paying employees, direct relief to polar bears in the Arctic, and creating ads and commercials to ask for donations.
Okay, so now we are going to get a little deeper into how we are going to use the money. So $100,000 is going to go towards paying employees. $750,000 will go towards buying land in the Arctic for habitat protection, housing scientists and researchers, and buying research equipment, and also buying food and other necessary resources for scientists and researchers to do their jobs. The last $150,000 will go towards creating ads and commercials for donations.
Once we begin to collect donations, we will spend that money at a ratio of 75% direct resources to the Arctic, 15% creation of ads and commercials asking for donations, and the last 10% for paying our employees.
Okay, so to wrap things up, polar bears can relate to the different levels of ecology and are a part of each in different ways. Due to this connection, our project is necessary in order to help the polar bear population and others around them survive. Our plan to help this movement involves educating companies, banning the hunting of polar bears, buying land in the Arctic, and putting a law in place that outlaws the drilling of ice. Our project budget is used to pay employees, send direct relief to the Arctic to help with the polar bears, create commercials or ads to spread awareness and to also ask for donations, and these donations received would be put right back into the project.
What can you do to help? We have 3 sources that help you learn how to donate and more facts about the polar bears. Our first news source from National Geographic explains in details why the polar bears are slowly becoming more and more extinct and what you can do to help their cause. Our second source is the World Life Foundation and allows you to donate once or monthly to help critical endangered animal species like the polar bears. Finally, our Polar Bears International source provides facts and ways to donate to help the polar bears combat climate change. Here are sources, and thank you for listening. We appreciate you listening to this presentation, and if you can, please do help the polar bears.